Forewarned is a first-person ghost investigation game where you will explore Egyptian tombs to try and recover an artifact without being claimed by the Medjai within. This is an early access review and the game is available on Steam. Atmosphere. The tombs themselves are extremely dark, eerie, and also full of hazards, and it's thanks to the limited light from the default equipment like the headlamp that there's a thin layer of tension just exploring these rooms and avoiding traps. Things like quicksand which slows down the player, or more fatal hazards like spike traps or fire-breathing statues raise apprehension to risk going forwards. While some locations are more spooky than others thanks to their unique design, with tight meandering hallways and Egyptian statues looming out of the darkness, all of the locations are unlocked from the start, with different sizes of each one available from the menu. Larger tombs are more maze-like and confusing to traverse, but the atmosphere holds up all the way through. The game streamlines the investigation process by telling you what the Medjai is after you've gathered the evidence, which prevents the tedious testing found in other ghost investigation games, and sets up the second part of the expedition. After collecting the artifact, the Medjai is then released and you've got to try and find a blue lever to release the tomb entrance door and escape. Every Medjai has a different quirk and personality, and it can range from you crawling around on the floor in the dark with only the night vision tablet to see where you're going, to having a clone of your friend follow you around until they attack you, which is unsettling and really raises the paranoia. The atmosphere varies wildly in the second half, but it's almost always more intense experience than before. Whilst the game does suffer from some awkward animations and effects, which is to be expected in an early access game, Forewarned's atmosphere starts off spooky and goes straight up from there. That's one Harry Mason. Scares. The game uses a vast array of differing things, from scripted events to jump scares, that all feel pretty organic and cleverly orchestrated. In the investigation stage, there's far more things to look out for than found in other ghost investigation games, and some of these also just work really well for the scares. Environmental destruction usually involves something breaking or blowing up next to you, which is always startling since its timing is so good that you'll forget about it until it surprises you again. Disturbed tombs will sometimes send mummified corpses shambling after you, which can be defeated with a torch, but they can also sneak up on you in the darkness. There's random scripted events like ghosts appearing and moving towards the player, or mummies looming over you as you examine a chest, which again are used sparingly enough to always come as a surprise. Things like the spirit radio make a return, but unlike in other games, the radio can acknowledge specific phrases and reply. I once asked a ghost who it was, and it replied, "Death," which was really impressive but also unsettling. The game will sometimes use random audio cues but place them in the sound environment, messing with the player by making them think that there's something horrific is happening nearby, but they can't see it. The game also handles death in a unique way, allowing you to return to life as a player, as a helpful mummy, or as an evil mummy to mess with your friends, a limited number of times. And this allows for the traps to be deadly but not a game over, and also it makes the game more interesting in multiplayer. In the second part, Forewarned will abandon all of the tricks of the first part and focus on you dealing with the Medjai when it's released. Whilst the enemy designs are a little odd and sometimes not frightening in appearance, most of them have unique quirks that make dealing with them frightening, or at least difficult, with usually one of you forced to keep the monster busy while the other finds the lever to release the exit. Forewarned does so many interesting things and they're executed so well that even though there's so many possible events that can happen, it always feels natural and its timing is immaculate. That's 2 Harry Masons. Sound design. There's not much variation on the music in the game whilst exploring the tombs, but it's pretty noticeable when you enter them, with a deep, hissing ambiance layered over a more unsettling, grinding synth that creeps in when things intensify. Other than that, the music doesn't really do much else, which creates a nice space to focus more on the sound effects in the environment. One of the investigation clues is footsteps, which means listening intently to the sounds around you. But like mentioned earlier, there's a great deal of unsettling sounds, from shrill, ghostly wails to the disturbing, strained groans of unseen origins. Various enemies that lurk in the darkness also make noises which are easy to pinpoint thanks to the directional audio, but not necessarily easy to see because of the limited light range. The footsteps you're meant to listen to are also placed in the environment, so they really sound like someone walking around. There's not much voice acting besides the ghosts talking back to you on the spirit radio, and since we didn't come across many Medjai that utilised it, we only heard it once, and the tone of the voice was pretty menacing, but sometimes it was difficult to understand. But you only need to get a response to check it off the list as evidence. But it would have been nicer to be able to understand what the Medjai was saying. Overall, the sound design is still really well put together. That's 3 Harry Masons. Gore. There's no gore in the game besides the blood that frames the screen when you get hurt, and whilst Forewarned probably would have been able to utilise some gore from possibly previous archaeologists that enter the tomb, it doesn't feel like it's missing it either, which is fine. That's 4 Harry Masons. Story. The basic premise is that you're archaeologists claiming relics from ancient tombs, and that's about as much setup as there is to the game itself. There's some notes laying around that tell tales of previous explorers that are usually ominous if you have time to read them, but interestingly, the document's date is set to match the time that you're playing the game, which doesn't make much sense, but it's also pretty cool regardless. There's lore pages too, but as far as I'm aware, they're just items and there's nothing to actually read. If they were a collectible that together told a tale of things that went on in the level you chose in Egyptian times, then that would be fascinating. But the game is still in early access, so there's a chance that they may get fleshed out later in the future. There's more story than I was expecting, but still less than I was hoping for, making the final score 4 out of 5 Harry Masons. Forewarned is a frankly brilliant piece of multiplayer horror that actually improves on the ideas of its influences and removes so many things that hurt or slow down the experience that playing them brought about. Having upgrades that allow you to increase inventory and improve on the equipment in a way that makes sense is more satisfying than other games in the genre usually muster, on top of having so many different locations to explore with various map sizes, which is a brilliant idea. I actually can't wait to play this game more when it's fully released. Again, I'd like to remind you the whole thing is down to my opinion in horror games, and if you don't share this opinion, then that's cool, I get it. I'd like to point out that whilst I desecrated some tombs, I did not scream like a banshee or run away from the computer, and advise you don't either. There will be more horror reviews in the pipeline, and thanks for watching. And always go check out Bumps in the middle of the night. Peace.
You